The Girl Who Stopped Believing. The elevator doors opened to the 23rd floor, and Zara Ahmed stepped into a world she didn't belong to. Glass walls, marble floors, and people in clothes that cost more than her monthly rent moved with purpose through Meridian Design Studio. She clutched her worn leather bag tighter, feeling every stitch that was coming undone, every scuff on her second-hand shoes. Her reflection in the glass startled her. When had she started looking so small? 3 months ago, she'd been a university graduate with honors in civil engineering. Now she was a girl drowning in her father's medical debts, wearing her cousin's altered interview suit, trying not to cry in an elevator. "You must be Zara." A woman with sharp eyes and sharper heels approached. "I'm Farah Qureshi, senior design assistant. Mr. Nasir asked me to show you around." The way Farah said Mr. Nasir carried weight, like speaking the name of someone untouchable. Zara had only met Hamza Nasir once, during an interview that lasted 7 minutes. He'd barely looked at her resume, the one with a 6-month gap she couldn't explain without falling apart. He'd just nodded and said, "You start Monday." Now it was Monday, and she was convinced she knew why she was here. Hamza Nasir was famous for his charity work. She'd read about it: scholarships for underprivileged students, grants for struggling artists, jobs for people who needed second chances. She was just another charity case, another name on his list of good deeds. "This is your desk," Farah said, gesturing to a small workstation near the supplies closet. Not near the windows where the senior designers sat. Not near the conference rooms where decisions happened. Near the closet. "You'll be handling administrative tasks. Filing, organizing, coffee runs. Basic stuff." "I understand," Zara said quietly. She'd gone to university for 4 years to bring people coffee, but she needed this job. The hospital bills wouldn't pay themselves. The morning passed in a blur of names she wouldn't remember, and tasks that felt deliberately menial. She organized files that were already organized. She made coffee no one had asked for. She heard the whispers in the break room when people thought she wasn't listening. That's her. The sympathy hire. "I heard her father died and left her with nothing. Hamza probably felt bad. Must be nice to get handed a job just because you're struggling." Zara kept her head down and worked. At lunch, she ate the sandwich she'd brought from home alone in the stairwell, where no one could see her and wonder why she wasn't eating out like everyone else. She saw Hamza Nasir only once that day. He walked past her desk on his way to a meeting, and for a moment their eyes met. His expression was unreadable. Not cold, but not warm either. Just distant, like looking at someone through frosted glass. Then he was gone, and she was alone again with her files and her shame. That evening, as Zara gathered her things to leave, she noticed something on her desk. A small note, handwritten in neat script. "Your work today was thorough. Thank you, Jen." She stared at it for a long moment, then crumpled it and threw it away. Pity, she thought. That's all it is, just another rich man's guilt, packaged as kindness. But as she waited for the bus in the rain, unable to afford a ride home, she couldn't stop thinking about the way he'd looked at her. Not with pity, with something else, something that felt almost like recognition. She shook her head. Foolish thoughts for a desperate girl. Tomorrow she'd work harder, keep quieter, and maybe eventually earn the job she'd been given out of charity. She didn't know that upstairs. Hamza Nasir stood at his window watching the rain, holding a sketch he'd drawn 12 years ago of a bookshop cafe, and in it, a girl with tired eyes who'd once told him his dreams were worth chasing. He'd been looking for her ever since. Shadows of a forgotten kindness. The second week at Meridian Design Studio felt longer than the first. Zara had developed a routine. Arrive early, leave late, speak only when spoken to, and avoid Hamza Nasir's gaze at all costs. She'd convinced herself that invisibility was survival, but Farah Qureshi had other plans. "These blueprints need to be delivered to the construction site in Clifton," Farah announced one Wednesday morning, dropping a heavy tube on Zara's desk. "Mr. Nasser wants them there by noon." "Don't be late." Zara glanced at the clock. It was already 10:30, and Clifton was an hour away in traffic. "I don't have... The company car is available. Keys are with security." Farah's smile was sharp enough to cut. "Unless you can't drive?" Should I tell Mr. Nasir you're unable to complete basic tasks? Heat flooded Zara's cheeks. I can manage. The drive to Clifton was nerve-wracking. The company car was a sleek Mercedes that probably cost more than her family's house. Every time she touched the steering wheel, she worried about scratching it. The construction site was chaos. Workers shouting, machinery roaring, dust everywhere. She found the site manager, delivered the blueprints, and got his signature. On the drive back, her phone buzzed. Unknown number, Miss Ahmed. This is Bilal from accounting. There's an issue with your employee documentation. Can you stop by before end of day? Her stomach dropped. Documentation issues meant verification checks, background checks. What if they discovered her father's debts? What if they found out she'd dropped out for a semester to work 3 jobs while he was dying in a hospital bed? She barely registered the traffic light turning red. The car behind her honked aggressively. She slammed the brakes, heart pounding. The blueprints tube rolled off the passenger seat. When she picked it up, she noticed it had come uncapped. Several sheets had slid out, but these weren't construction blueprints. These were sketches, personal sketches. One showed a small bookshop cafe drawn in meticulous detail, the kind of place that didn't exist in modern Karachi anymore, all replaced by glass and steel. She recognized it immediately, Page and Pour, the little shop near Punjab University where she'd worked during her undergraduate years. It had closed down 5 years ago when the owner retired. Her hands trembled as she examined the sketch. The drawing was dated 12 years ago, signed with simple initials, H.N. Hamza Nasir, but that was impossible. She would have remembered meeting someone like him. Wouldn't she? The memory came in fragments, unreliable and hazy. 12 years ago, she was 19, working part-time at Page and Pour between engineering classes. Her father's heart condition had just been diagnosed. Money was already tight. She remembered serving countless customers, most of them students cramming for exams or artists nursing single cups of coffee for hours. One of them came every Tuesday and Thursday. A thin young man with intense eyes and a battered sketchbook. He always ordered the cheapest thing on the menu, black coffee, no sugar, and sat in the corner booth for hours drawing. His clothes were clean but worn. His shoes had been resoled multiple times. She remembered feeling a kinship with him. Both of them were struggling, both trying to build something from nothing. One rainy afternoon, he'd left his sketchbook behind. She'd looked through it, dozens of building designs, each more ambitious than the last. When he'd rushed back, panicked, she'd smiled and said, "These are beautiful. You're going to build amazing things someday." He'd stared at her like she'd handed him the world. "You really think so?" "I know so," she'd said. "Don't give up, okay? Promise me." "I promise," he'd whispered. A horn blared. The light was green. Zara drove mechanically back to the office, her mind spinning. Could that struggling art student have been Hamza Nasir, the billionaire who owned Meridian Design Studio? She returned the car keys to security and headed to her desk. But Farah intercepted her. "Mr. Nasir wants to see you. His office. Now." Zara's throat went dry. "Did I do something wrong?" "I'm sure you'll find out." Farah's expression was almost triumphant. Hamza Nasir's office occupied the entire corner of the 23rd floor. Floor-to-ceiling windows overlooked the Karachi skyline. His desk was minimalist, everything in its place except for one item, a small, battered sketchbook that looked completely out of place among the sleek technology. He stood with his back to her, hands in his pockets, looking out at the city. "Miss Ahmed, please sit." She perched on the edge of the chair, clutching her bag. "If this is about the blueprints, I delivered them on time. This isn't about the blueprints." He turned to face her, and for the first time, she really looked at him. He was probably in his early 30s, with kind eyes that seemed tired. "How are you settling in? Is the work manageable?" "Yes, sir." "Thank you for the opportunity. You don't have to call me sir. Hamza is fine." He moved to his desk, picked up the old sketchbook, and held it for a moment like it was precious. "Miss Ahmed, Zara, can I ask you something personal?" Her heart hammered. "Of course. Did you ever work at a bookshop cafe? Near Punjab University? About 12 years ago?" The room seemed to tilt. Yes, Page and Pour. How did you—" "I was one of your customers. The broke architecture student who couldn't afford more than coffee." His voice was soft, almost vulnerable. "You probably don't remember. Why would you? You must have served hundreds of people, but she did remember. Suddenly, vividly. The thin young man in the corner booth. The sketches. The promise. You kept coming back, she whispered. Every Tuesday and Thursday. Something flickered in his eyes. Surprise, relief, maybe hope. You do remember. I remember you left your sketchbook once. I looked through it. I told you. The words caught in her throat. I told you that you'd build amazing things. You told me not to give up, he said quietly. You made me promise, and I kept that promise, Zara. When everyone else said I was wasting my time, when my family wanted me to take a stable banking job, when every firm rejected my applications, I remembered what you said. That girl in the bookshop who believed in a stranger's dreams. Tears burned her eyes. That was just kindness. I was just being nice. It was more than that. It was the first time anyone looked at my work and saw potential instead of foolishness. He set the sketchbook down and took a step closer. When I saw your application 3 weeks ago, I recognized your name immediately. I knew you'd been through difficult times. I knew you needed this job. But I didn't hire you out of pity, Zara. Then why? Her voice cracked. Because I owed you. Because 12 years ago you saved me from giving up and I never got to thank you. Because the moment I saw your name, I thought, finally I can repay the kindness that changed my life. The office felt too small, too warm. Zara couldn't breathe. All this time, she'd thought she was Charity, a burden, another name on his list of good deeds. But he'd been looking for her, remembering her, carrying her kindness for 12 years like a torch in the dark. I don't know what to say, she whispered. You don't have to say anything. I just wanted you to know you belong here. Not because I'm being charitable, but because you earned it 12 years ago when you chose to encourage a stranger. He returned to the window, giving her space. The position I hired you for isn't actually administrative. I needed someone I could trust to help me with a special project, but I thought you needed time to settle in first. A special project? A community center. In the neighborhood where I grew up, where kids like I was can learn architecture, engineering, art, whatever they dream of. I need someone who understands what it means to struggle, to fight, to keep going when everything says to quit. He looked at her over his shoulder. I need someone like you. Zara stood on shaking legs. Mr. Nasir, Hamza, I don't understand. I'm not qualified. You're more qualified than anyone else in this building. You know what matters. You know why we do this. His eyes held hers. Will you help me? Through the glass wall, she could see Farah watching them, her expression calculating. She could hear the whispers in her mind. Sympathy hire, charity case, she doesn't deserve this. But for the first time since her father died, Zara felt something other than shame. She felt seen. Not as a burden, but as someone who mattered. Someone who'd made a difference without even knowing it. Yes, she said. I'll help you. His smile transformed his entire face, making him look younger, lighter. Thank you, and Zara? Welcome to Meridian. Really welcome. As she left his office, head high for the first time in months, she didn't notice Hamza watching her through. The glass with an expression that had nothing to do with gratitude and everything to do with someone who'd been waiting half his life to find something. Precious he'd lost. Outside, storm clouds gathered over Karachi. But inside Meridian Design Studio, something was beginning to bloom. Something that had been planted 12 years ago in a small bookshop cafe, in a moment of kindness between two struggling souls who had no idea they were saving each other. The blueprint of memory. The following weeks blurred together in a way that felt almost dreamlike. Zara found herself pulled from her desk near the supply closet to a small office on the 20th floor. Nothing fancy, but it had a window and a drafting table. Hamza had been serious about the community center project, and suddenly she was attending planning meetings, reviewing architectural proposals, meeting with contractors. Farah's hostility intensified proportionally to Zara's rising status. So now you're a project manager? Farah cornered her in the break room one afternoon, voice dripping with venom. 3 weeks ago, you could barely organize a filing cabinet. What exactly makes you qualified to oversee a million-rupee project? Zara measured her words carefully. Hamza believes I can contribute something valuable. That's enough for me. Hamza, Farah repeated mockingly. You're on first-name basis now? Let me tell you something, sweetheart. I've worked here for 6 years. 6 years of proving myself, of working 70-hour weeks, of sacrificing everything for this company. And you walk in off the street and suddenly you're his special project? I didn't ask for any of this. No, you just showed up with your sad story and your dead father and your poverty, and you manipulated a good man's kindness. Some of us actually earned our positions. The words hit like physical blows. Zara felt herself shrinking again, becoming that small, invisible girl who didn't deserve the space she occupied. But then she remembered Hamza's words. You earned it 12 years ago when you chose to encourage a stranger. I'm sorry you feel that way, Zara said quietly, walking past Farah. But I'm not going anywhere. Behind her, she heard Farah's sharp intake of breath, the promise of future warfare in that single sound. That evening, Hamza asked her to stay late to review the community center's architectural renderings. Most of the office had emptied out by 7 p.m., leaving just the two of them in the design studio, surrounded by blueprints and 3D models projected on screens. What do you think? Hamza asked, pointing to the main building design. Too modern? I want it to feel welcoming, not intimidating. Zara studied the rendering. The building was beautiful, all clean lines and glass, but something felt off. It's gorgeous, but can I be honest? Please? It doesn't look like it belongs to the neighborhood. It looks like something that was imposed on it, not something that grew from it. She hesitated. The kids who'll use this center, they need to feel like it's theirs, not like they're visitors in someone else's space. Hamza leaned back, processing this. You're right. Completely right. That's exactly the problem I couldn't articulate. He pulled up a chair beside her. Show me what you're imagining. For the next hour, they worked side by side, sketching modifications. Zara's hand moved across paper with a confidence she'd forgotten she had. She suggested incorporating traditional jolly screens for natural cooling, using local materials, adding a courtyard for community gatherings, elements that honored the neighborhood's character while providing modern facilities. This is brilliant, Hamza said, watching her work. Where did you learn to think like this? My father was a civil engineer, old school before everything became about glass towers and luxury apartments. He used to say that buildings should serve people, not impress them. Her voice caught. He never got to finish his last project. He got sick too soon. Hamza was quiet for a moment. What was the project? A small school in our neighborhood. Nothing fancy. Just a place where kids could learn without walls falling down around them. She smiled sadly. He had all these plans. Solar panels for electricity, rainwater harvesting, gardens for science classes. He wanted to show that sustainable design didn't have to be expensive. That's beautiful. That's exactly the philosophy we need. Hamza stood abruptly. Wait here. I want to show you something. He disappeared into his private office and returned with a large portfolio case. From it, he pulled old sketches, yellowed with age. These are from my university days, before I could afford proper drafting software. Before I knew what I was doing. Zara looked through them and her breath caught. They were rough, unpolished, but the vision was there. Buildings that served communities, public spaces that brought people together, architecture with soul. These are wonderful, she said. Why don't you design like this anymore? The question hung between them, heavy with implication. Hamza took the sketches back, his expression troubled. Somewhere along the way, I forgot. The business grew. Clients wanted showpieces, not substance. I started designing what sold, not what mattered. He looked at her directly. Until I saw your application and remembered why I started this in the first place. Thunder rumbled outside. The storm that had been threatening all day finally broke, rain slamming against the windows in sheets. The lights flickered once, twice, then died completely, plunging them into darkness broken only by emergency exit signs and the glow of laptop batteries. Perfect timing, Hamza muttered. Backup generator should kick in any second. But the seconds stretched, and the darkness remained. Zara heard Hamza moving around, then the soft glow of his phone flashlight illuminated his face from below, creating strange shadows. Power's out in the whole district, apparently. Going to be a while before it's restored. He checked his watch. It's nearly 9. I should call you a car. The roads will be flooded, Zara said. I've lived here my whole life. When it rains like this, half the city becomes a lake. Better to wait it out. So they waited in the darkness, the rain creating a white noise barrier between them and the rest of the world. Hamza pulled out his phone to provide light, and they continued working on the community center designs by the small glow. Their heads bent close together over the drafting table. Can I ask you something personal? Hamza said after a while. Zara tensed. Okay. Why did you stop believing in yourself? When I knew you at the bookshop, you had this light about you, this certainty that good things were possible. Now you walk around like you're apologizing for existing. The observation was so accurate it hurt. People change. Life happens. That's not an answer. She set down her pencil. My father got sick. Really sick. We spent everything we had on treatments that didn't work. I had to drop out of university for a semester to work 3 jobs. My friends moved on without me. My professors forgot I existed. By the time I came back, I was behind everyone, struggling to catch up, and my father was... She stopped, unable to finish. Dying, Hamza said softly. Dying, she confirmed. And I realized that all those dreams I'd had, becoming an engineer, designing sustainable infrastructure, making a difference, they were just fantasies. The real world was hospital bills and loan sharks and watching the strongest man I knew waste away to nothing. So I stopped believing. It was easier than hoping. In the darkness, she felt more than saw Hamza shift closer. Your father, what was his name? Noor Ahmed. Noor, light. Hamza was quiet for a moment. Did he know you stopped believing in yourself? The question pierced her. I don't know. He was so sick at the end. We didn't talk about my dreams. We talked about pain medication and doctor appointments and how to pay for the next treatment. I think he knew, Hamza said. And I think if he were here, he'd tell you that surviving what you survived took more strength than most people have. That keeping going when everything fell apart was its own kind of courage. That you didn't stop believing, you just got tired. And being tired isn't the same as being broken. Tears spilled down Zara's cheeks in the darkness where he couldn't see them. How do you know what he'd say? Because I'm betting he was the kind of man who raised a daughter who showed kindness to strangers even when she was struggling herself. The kind of man who taught you that buildings should serve people, not impress them. The kind of man who would be so proud of who you are, even now, especially now. A sob escaped her throat, then another. Suddenly she was crying in earnest. All the grief she'd been holding back for months pouring out in the darkness of a design studio during a power outage. She felt Hamza's hand find hers, warm and steady, not saying anything, just holding on while she fell apart. When the storm inside her finally subsided to match the one outside, Zara wiped her eyes with her free hand. I'm sorry. That was unprofessional. Grief isn't unprofessional. It's human. Hamza squeezed her hand once before letting go. And for what it's worth, I think your father would love what you're designing for this community center. It has his philosophy all over it. Before Zara could respond, she heard a noise from the corridor. Footsteps, the beam of a flashlight. Farah's voice called out, Mr. Nasir? Are you still here? I saw the lights were on earlier. The office door opened. And Farah's flashlight beam swept across the room, landing on them, Hamza and Zara sitting close together in the darkness, surrounded by sketches and dreams, her eyes still red from crying. His hand still hovering where he'd been holding hers, Farah's expression went carefully blank. I'm sorry. I didn't mean to interrupt. Whatever this is. You're not interrupting, Hamza said, his voice professional but not unkind. Miss Ahmed and I were working on the community center proposal when the power went out. We're just waiting for the storm to pass. Of course, working. Farah's tone suggested she believed nothing of the sort. Well, I just wanted to make sure everything was secure before I left. I'll be going now. She left, but the damage. When silence speaks louder, the whispers started before Zara even made it to her office Monday morning. She felt them as she walked through the lobby, conversations that stopped when she passed, eyes that followed her movement, phones that angled subtly to capture her image. By the time she reached the 20th floor, her hands were shaking. Someone had taped a printed screenshot to her office door. It showed her and Hamza in the darkened studio, sitting close together, his hand reaching toward hers. The image was grainy, clearly taken with a phone from the hallway, but the implication was crystal clear. Written across it in red marker. Is this why she got promoted? Zara tore it down, crumpling it in her fist. Behind her, she heard footsteps approaching. I tried to take it down before you arrived. Hamza's voice was tight with anger. Zara, I'm so sorry. I'm handling this. Don't. She turned to face him, chin raised despite the humiliation burning through her. Don't handle it. Don't make special announcements. Don't call meetings to defend my honor. That'll only make it worse. I can't just let people think. Let them think whatever they want. I know the truth. You know the truth. That has to be enough, but it wasn't enough. Over the next week, the hostile work environment intensified. Someone left relationship advice books on her desk. Others made pointed comments about sleeping your way to the top within her hearing. The work she submitted was scrutinized with newfound skepticism, as if everything she produced must somehow be fraudulent. Farah, predictably, led the charge with subtle precision. She never said anything directly offensive, just questions laced with poison. Zara, would you mind reviewing this proposal? I want to make sure it meets Mr. Nasir's personal standards. Or, oh, are you attending the client meeting? I didn't realize junior staff were invited to high-level discussions now. The worst part was that some of her designs were genuinely good, but now every compliment felt tainted. When Hamza praised her work in team meetings, she saw other people exchanging knowing glances. When he asked for her opinion, she heard the unspoken question from others. Why does she get special treatment? One afternoon, she overheard two junior architects talking by the water cooler. It's not fair, one complained. I've been working on getting assigned to the community center project for months. Then she shows up from nowhere and gets handed the lead design role. Well, you know why, the other replied. She's got connections. Personal connections. My parents are pressuring me to find a rich boss to seduce, too. Apparently, that's the career path now. They both laughed, and Zara felt something inside her crack. She'd endured poverty, grief, humiliation, but this was different. This was her integrity being questioned, her worth being reduced to something transactional and shameful. That evening, she stayed late working on the community center renderings, losing herself in clean lines and precise calculations. Architecture didn't judge. Numbers didn't whisper. A well-designed space served its purpose regardless of who created it. She was so absorbed that she didn't notice Hamza entering until he spoke. It's nearly 9 p.m. You should go home. Zara kept drawing. Almost finished. Zara. He moved closer, and she could feel his presence like heat. We need to talk about what's happening. Nothing's happening. People are just people. People are being cruel. There's a difference. He pulled up a chair, sitting beside her. I've identified who took that photo and spread it around. I'm initiating disciplinary action. No. Zara set down her pencil with enough force to crack the lead. You can't keep protecting me. Every time you defend me, you make it worse. They already think I'm your pet project, your charity case, She couldn't finish the sentence. My what? Hamza's voice was soft, dangerous. Say it. Your mistress, she whispered. They think I'm sleeping with you for career advancement. And every time you single me out for praise, every time you give me opportunities, every time you so much as look at me for too long, you confirm their suspicions. Hamza stood abruptly, pacing to the window. When he spoke, his voice was raw. So what do you want me to do? Pretend you're not talented? Ignore your contributions? Treat you like you're invisible to appease office gossip? Maybe you should have thought about that before you hired me. Before you pulled me into your special project. Before you, her voice broke. Before you made me believe I was worth something again. The silence stretched between them like a chasm. Finally, Hamza turned, and the expression on his face made Zara's breath catch. Do you want to know the real reason I can't treat you like everyone else? The reason I notice when you walk into a room, when you speak up in meetings, when you stay late working on designs that you pour your whole heart into? Hamza, don't... It's not gratitude, Zara. It stopped being just gratitude weeks ago. He took a step toward her. 12 years ago, you were the girl who believed in me, but now you're the woman who challenges my ideas, who makes me want to design buildings that matter again. who reminds me why I fell in love with architecture in the first place. You're brilliant and stubborn and so determined to prove you deserve to be here that you work twice as hard as anyone else. And yes, I notice. How could I not? Zara stood frozen, her heart hammering against her ribs. You can't say things like that. You're my employer. I know. Believe me, I know. I've been trying to ignore it, trying to convince myself it's just nostalgia or misplaced gratitude or... He ran a hand through his hair in frustration. But watching them tear you apart this week, watching you endure their cruelty with your head held high, watching you refuse to let them break you... Zara, I don't know how to feel nothing for you. You have to. The words came out strangled. Because I can't do this. I can't be the woman who slept her way to success. I can't prove everyone right. You wouldn't be proving them right. They're wrong about you. They're wrong about us. There is no us. Zara grabbed her bag, needing distance, needing air. There can't be. I need this job, Hamza. I need to pay my father's hospital debts. I need to support my mother. I need to prove I can stand on my own 2 feet without anyone's charity or pity or love. The word hung in the air between them, impossible to take back. Zara felt tears burning her eyes. Don't! Please don't! Too late. Hamza's smile was sad, resigned. I'm sorry. I know this makes everything more complicated. I know I've made your life harder just by feeling something I shouldn't feel. If you want to transfer to a different project, a different department, even a different company, I'll make it happen. I'll write you the best recommendation letter anyone's ever received. Stop, Zara whispered. Just stop. She left without another word, practically running to the elevator, desperate to escape before she did something catastrophic like admit that she felt it too. That every time he looked at her, she forgot how to breathe. That working beside him felt like coming home to a place she'd never been. That somewhere between blueprint reviews and late-night design sessions, she'd started falling for the man who'd remembered her when she'd forgotten herself. But love was a luxury she couldn't afford. Love meant vulnerability, dependence, risk. Love meant giving ammunition to everyone who already thought she'd traded her dignity for opportunity. The bus ride home blurred past in a haze of tears and rain. Her mother was already asleep when she arrived, which was a mercy. She couldn't have explained her swollen eyes or trembling hands. In her small bedroom, surrounded by her father's old engineering textbooks and sketches, Zara pulled out her laptop and began drafting a letter of resignation. Dear Mr. Nasir, thank you for the opportunity to work at Meridian Design Studio. However, due to personal circumstances, I must resign effective immediately. She stared at the words, cursor blinking accusingly. This was the smart thing to do, the safe thing. Walk away before feelings turned into scandal, before she became the cautionary tale other women whispered about. Her phone buzzed. A message from an unknown number. Don't you dare quit. Then another. This is Sima from accounting. We've been watching what's happening to you. Several of us want you to know we see the quality of your work. We see how hard you try. We see that you're actually good at this regardless of how you got hired. Don't let the bullies win. Zara stared at the message, then at the resignation letter, then back at the message. She thought about her father, who'd fought for months against an illness that should have killed him in weeks. Who'd taught her that strength wasn't about never falling, it was about getting up every time you fell. She deleted the resignation letter. Instead, she opened the community center files and worked until dawn, refining designs, solving problems, creating something that would outlast gossip and cruelty and complicated feelings. By the time the sun rose over Karachi, she'd completed the most comprehensive proposal of her career, a building that would serve hundreds of children, that incorporated sustainable design principles, that would stand as proof that she was here because she belonged, not because someone took pity on her. When she arrived at the office that morning, exhausted but determined, she found Hamza already in the design studio. He looked like he hadn't slept either. I thought you might not come back, he admitted. I considered it. Zara set down her laptop. But then I realized something. 12 years ago, I told you not to give up on your dreams. I made you promise. So I'm making myself the foundations built on gratitude. 6 months had passed since that rainy night when everything changed. 6 months of early mornings and late evenings, of blueprints and revisions, of slowly earning respect one design at a time. 6 months of professional distance carefully maintained between Zara Ahmed and Hamza Nasir, even as the air between them crackled with everything they weren't saying. The community center was nearly complete. Zara stood at the construction site in the neighborhood where Hamza had grown up, watching workers install the last of the jolly screens she'd designed. The building rose from the crowded streets like a promise kept. Modern yet rooted, ambitious yet accessible. Every detail reflected hours of thought. The courtyard where families could gather. The workshop spaces flooded with natural light. The library with reading nooks at child height. The rooftop garden where vegetables would grow alongside dreams. "It's beautiful," a voice said behind her. Saima from accounting had become an unexpected ally over the past months. One of several women in the office who'd quietly supported Zara when the gossip was at its worst. "You should be proud." "I am," Zara admitted. And she was. This building was hers in a way that had nothing to do with who hired her or why. Every structural calculation, every material choice, every design element that prioritized function over flash, it all bore her fingerprints. "Have you heard?" Saima leaned in conspiratorially. Farah put in her resignation. "Got an offer from another firm. She leaves next week." Zara felt a complicated mix of relief and something almost like pity. "I hope she finds what she's looking for." "You're more generous than I'd be." "She made your life miserable for months." Saima studied her. "You've changed, you know. When you first arrived, you looked like you wanted to disappear. Now you look like you could build worlds." After Saima left, Zara walked through the half-finished building alone. The walls still smelled of fresh paint and possibility. She ran her hand along the cool concrete, thinking about all the children who would pass through these halls. Who would discover their talents in these rooms? Who would dream bigger because someone built them a place to dream? Your father would have loved this. Zara turned to find Hamza standing in the doorway, silhouetted against the late afternoon sun. He'd maintained careful distance over the past months, professional in meetings, respectful of boundaries, never alone with her unless others were present. It had been torture and salvation in equal measure. "What are you doing here?" she asked. "The site inspection isn't until tomorrow." "I know. I wanted to see it without the contractors and consultants and noise. Just the building." He stepped inside, looking around with an expression she couldn't quite read. "And I wanted to talk to you. Alone. If that's okay?" Her heart hammered. "Okay." He walked slowly through the space, taking in every detail. "Do you remember what you said 6 months ago? That we'd focus on the work, prove what you were capable of, and then maybe talk about everything else?" "I remember." "Well?" He stopped in front of the large windows overlooking the courtyard, hands in his pockets. "The work is nearly done. The community center opens next week. Everyone who doubted you has been proven wrong. Your reputation is established. So I have to ask, is it time?" Zara's mouth went dry. "Time for what?" "For honesty. For truth. For admitting that these past 6 months of professionalism have been the hardest 6 months of my life." He turned to face her. "I kept my promise. I gave you space to prove yourself. But Zara, I can't keep pretending that working beside you every day, watching you pour your soul into this building, seeing you become the architect you were always meant to be. I can't keep pretending that hasn't made me fall completely, irrevocably in love with you." The words hung in the empty building, echoing off unfinished walls. Zara felt her carefully constructed defenses crumbling. "I'm still your employee," she said weakly. "Not for long." Hamza pulled an envelope from his jacket pocket. "I've been working on something. A separate entity. A non-profit foundation dedicated to community architecture projects. It would be independent from Meridian Design Studio, with its own board, its own funding, its own structure. And it needs a director. Someone who understands what it means to build for people, not profit. Someone who believes that architecture should serve communities, not impress clients." He held out the envelope. With trembling hands, Zara opened it. Inside was a formal job offer, director of the Noor Foundation, named after her father. The salary was generous, the terms were clear, and the signature line was blank. "The foundation is real," Hamza continued. legally established, independently funded. If you take this position, you'd be my equal, not my employee. You'd report to a board of directors, not to me. You'd have complete autonomy over projects and hiring. The community center would be the foundation's first initiative, but there would be others: schools, libraries, public spaces, all designed with the philosophy your father taught you. Tears blurred Zara's vision. You named it after him. He was a civil engineer who believed buildings should serve people. His daughter is an architect who's proving that philosophy can change lives. It felt right. Hamza took a step closer. But I need you to know, this offer isn't conditional on anything. If you take the job and want nothing to do with me personally, I'll respect that. This is about your career, your talent, your future, not about my feelings. And if I want both? The words escaped before Zara could stop them. The job and you. Something fierce and hopeful flashed in Hamza's eyes. Then I'd be the luckiest man alive. Zara looked at the job offer, then at the building around them, then at the man who'd spent 12 years remembering a kindness, 6 months respecting her boundaries, and countless hours creating a path forward that honored both her independence and his heart. I told you once that you'd build amazing things, she said softly, but I was wrong. You haven't just built buildings, Hamza, you've built opportunities, second chances, futures for people who thought they had none. You built a foundation, literally and figuratively, for someone you barely knew, just because she was kind to you once. You were more than kind. You were the first person who believed in me. And you were the first person who made me believe in myself again. Zara set down the job offer and closed the distance between them. Yes, yes to the job. Yes to the job. Yes to the foundation. Yes to building something that matters. And yes to you if the offer still stands. Hamza's smile transformed his entire face. The offer has been standing for 12 years. I just had to wait for you to be ready to accept it. When he kissed her, it tasted like rain and promises, like endings and beginnings, like two people who'd saved each other without knowing it, finally learning they were worth saving. The late afternoon sun poured through the windows, illuminating dust motes and dreams in equal measure. People will still talk, Zara murmured against his lips. They'll say I manipulated this, that we planned it from the beginning. Let them talk. The work speaks louder than gossip. The buildings we'll create together, the lives will change, the communities will serve. That's what history will remember. Not office rumors, he was right. But more than that, Zara finally understood something crucial. She didn't need everyone's approval. She didn't need to prove herself to people determined to think the worst. She only needed to prove herself to herself, and she'd done that, brick by brick, design by design, choice by choice. 1 week later, the opening ceremony for the community center drew a crowd that spilled out into the streets. Local politicians gave speeches. Media cameras captured every angle. But the real magic happened in the smaller moments. A child discovering the art studio, eyes wide with possibility. An elderly woman tearing up at the library, remembering when education felt like a distant dream. Teenagers gathering in the courtyard, already making plans for a neighborhood basketball league. Zara stood to the side, watching it all unfold. She wore a simple blue kurta, her father's old drafting compass on a chain around her neck, the one thing of his she'd kept when they'd sold everything else to pay hospital bills. Her mother squeezed her hand. Your father would burst with pride if he could see this. See you? I hope so, Ami. I know so. You took his philosophy and built something real from it. You didn't just design a building, you designed hope. Her mother smiled through tears. And that young man who keeps watching you from across the courtyard? The one who looks at you like you hung the moon? Your father would have liked him. Zara followed her mother's gaze to where Hamza stood talking with community leaders, his attention drifting back to her every few seconds. When their eyes met, he smiled. Not the polite professional smile he'd worn for months, but something warmer, something that was just for her. A young girl approached Zara shyly, maybe 8 years old, clutching a drawing. Excuse me, miss? Are you the architect who built this place? Zara knelt to the girl's level. I am. Do you like it? It's the most beautiful building I've ever seen. The girl held out her drawing, a crude sketch of a house with elaborate details that made no structural sense, but showed boundless imagination. I want to be an architect too when I grow up. Can I do that? Zara took the drawing carefully, remembering another young person's dreams dismissed by everyone except one kind stranger. You can absolutely do that. You know what the secret is? At the end,